Monty Williams has been fired as the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. I repeat, Monty Williams has been fired as the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. We'll talk about that in just a moment.
Lane, skies a jam. Dynamite dunk and the crowd loves it.
Back to Pistons Intellect. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_313. You can also follow us over on Instagram at Pistons_Intellect. And as always, if you're feeling so kind, please hit that subscribe button. Well, today is a good day, Pistons fans. The Detroit Pistons will have a new head coach for next season and beyond, with the news dropping this morning from Woj that the Pistons have fired coach Monty Williams after one season, and they will absorb the remaining 5 years, $65 million on his contract. Now, before I just get into the news side of things, we've already got some kind of stuff just surrounding how this all went down. But I just wanted to open, I think it's appropriate. I've only just woken up. This is kind of my raw reaction. Funnily enough, I kind of went to bed last night 20 minutes before the news broke. But regardless, this is kind of my raw reaction. Tomorrow's episode will be more news-based, and once we find out more about who the Pistons could be looking at, that kind of thing, I'll delve into that. But today's just a day of emotion, and I guess how I'm feeling about this news is just relief. I want to just first off say, like, best of luck to Monty Williams and his future endeavors with coaching. But in terms of this decision, I think it's the right one. I think it's kind of the right one for all parties involved, especially considering the fact Tom Gores was willing to pay out that entire remainder of that $65 million. Like, I think Monty Williams needed a fresh start. He didn't seem to be fully engaged last season, I think is putting it kind of maybe nicely. But just from a fan's perspective, I'm just relieved, to have now a new front office and what's likely to be a new coach and probably coaching staff in some form. I think just makes all the sense in the world. In the past month, my thinking around Monty had changed. I wouldn't say a month ago I was, all for keeping Monty. I was never clamoring to keep him or that kind of thing, because you won 14 games. Like, no matter how bad the roster is, you won 14 games. Like, the worst season in franchise history, one of the worst in league history. Like, everyone should be open to change and roles adjusted and that kind of thing. But I thought maybe, I still believe that Monty's a better coach than what we saw. But in the past month or so, I had come around to the idea of it just makes sense to start fresh. If there's even a 5% chance of getting rid of Monty in the following season, you may as well just do it now, especially if your owner's willing to pay out the remainder of that contract. Just start fresh now. Don't get 20 games in and have all this stuff surrounding the team once again about fire the coach, fire this, fire that. You don't want to bring any of that into next season. Last season was a disaster. Especially, you don't want any of this noise while you have a team with a young core. And even if that young core shrinks going into next season, like, your team's still going to be largely based around young players rising to their ceiling. And I just think it's a horrible environment to go through what they went through last season and seasons prior. Like, that's just such a bad environment for development, I believe. So I'm just relieved, because I'm not even sure who the Pistons' next coach will be. If I had to guess right now, without even looking into things, I feel like James Borrego will probably be number one, and that's just because he was the assistant coach with the Pelicans last season. He's been a head coach before. He has ties with Chad and Langdon. But look, Monty Williams, the signs were there early. The signs were there when, as much as we appreciate the honesty, he said the money changed it. The signs were there. The money changed his decision to come to Detroit. The signs were there when Troy Weaver wasn't able to hire the coach he wanted, and Tom Gores swooped in from ownership level and hired the man he wanted. The signs were there when Monty started Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey. The signs were there when Killian Hayes continued to start right up until he was waived by the Pistons, and has still yet to be seen on an NBA roster or professional basketball roster. The signs were there when Monty would say he's shortening the rotation, but then the next night play 11 guys, and with Jaden Ivey being that 11th guy. The signs were there when he continued to play all bench lineups with the worst team, worst roster in the league, and continued to give away any form of early leads by playing 5-man units of guys who have no business playing in a 5-man unit in the NBA. The signs were there. I could go on forever. And I don't want this to just turn into a huge disrespectful thing against Monty, but it just felt like he was not engaged from day one. And, I cannot, I can kind of defend some things, but the starting of Killian Hayes thing was the beginning of the end. And because what coach comes in and continues to start one of the least efficient players in the league over your top 5 pick? Like, the fact Tom Gores had to come across from, ownership had to come and talk to Monty about starting and featuring Jaden Ivey, who was only a year ago your top 5 pick, second team all rookie, guy who closed his rookie season averaging like 20 points on decent efficiency. Yes, the team wasn't winning, but still, that's not nothing, especially when it's Killian Hayes starting over him. Like, the fact that ownership had to have conversations that actually were logical in a basketball sense about adjusting the rotation. The red flags were just there at every turn. And I think Monty was probably set up to fail in some regards, with the roster not being appropriate for kind of a coach like Monty, who's not, how can I say this? That Phoenix Suns team he took over that had the success and had that bubble success, they still had veterans like Aaron Baines. Devin Booker was in his 5th or 6th season. They had Mikal Bridges was an older rookie, Cam Johnson, older rookie type player. They both weren't rookies, but they were in their 2nd or 3rd season, but they were older. That team was just had more vets. That's probably the team. That's probably where the Pistons thought they were, but ultimately they struck out completely in free agency last summer. And, Monty was probably set up to fail with not really having any serious veterans to help play the way he might have wanted to play. But, this roster still should have won more than 14 games. And that's where things, it's, when you win 14 games, it makes sense. The GM gone, coach gone, and the roster, I would suspect, is now going to undergo pretty dramatic change. Even if they don't get an all-star type player, even if it's just moving on from one of the core, or, spending heaps of cap space to bring in more veterans. I suspect this roster is going to look a lot different next season. Whichever direction, whether they want to continue to take this kind of in more of a slow rebuild phase with Trajan, with new staff in the front office, or if they just go more towards winning immediately next season, I think this roster is going to look a lot different. So those are kind of my thoughts. I kind of just ranted then a little bit, but when we get to the news side of things, I guess I should just go through some of the things Woj said. So obviously Monty was fired this morning, but Woj went on to say, new Pistons president of basketball operations, Trajan Langdon, who was hired a month ago, had been meeting regularly with Williams about the franchise's future, but the decision to dismiss Williams was directed from ownership level with Tom Gores. Langdon delivered the news to Williams on Wednesday morning. Monty was apparently blindsided by this news. And then Tom Gores and Pistons Vice Chairman Arn Tellem had been advocates of dismissing Williams. So, it feels like it was all around kind of a decision from the front office and ownership to get rid of Monty. Monty, I believe, had been kind of almost re-interviewing for the job. So the fact he was blindsided probably means he thought he had a good grasp. I mean, I thought it, with the report we had the other day, it kind of felt like the longer this went on, Monty was coming back. And it just, I'm still a bit shocked. So sorry if this episode's a bit all over the place, but I am relieved. I am happy the Pistons are going to have new leadership all around next season. I think that is imperative. And yeah, I think it's just the hope is restored now, because it just felt like last season was so bad. Like it was so bad. Like just the culturally things felt off. Like there's just a disconnect between ownership, front office, and coaching. Like just felt like there was no synergy there, by their own doing. And you know, it now things. Whoever the Pistons head coach is, one thing I will say is I hope they do not hire another proven veteran head coach. Borrego has coached before, but he's like 48 years old. He's a young coach. I'm cool with that. I just don't want another, like, this is a bad example, but like a Steve Clifford or a Stan Van Gundy. Like, I don't like, or another Monty, basically, like, like, or a Bickerstaff who the Cavs let go. I don't even think that's not happening, but I don't want that type of coach. I want a coach who's ready for a fresh opportunity. And, someone who can kind of grow with this team a little bit more. In hindsight, that's what the Pistons should have done last summer, and probably what Troy Weaver was trying to do. Whether Kevin Ollie and those candidates were the right people, we'll never know. But Troy certainly seemed to think that was the path to go down. And obviously, we've seen what happened with getting a more established coach last season. So let's probably lean towards the direction of more unproven young head coach, someone who's done their duties, though, as an assistant. I'm not the biggest fan of JJ Redick, to be honest. I've already seen some people chatting about that, but yeah, that's kind of all I've got, guys. As I said, I'll be back tomorrow. Once I've had a chance just to go through all the news from the Athletic, from the Pistons beat reporters. I'm sure we're going to be able to discuss some candidates tomorrow, and there's probably going to be more news filtering through in the next 24 hours and on the Monty situation and more, and just how we got to this point. But I think I'm just going to leave it there. Let me know your comments. Let me know how you're feeling. But yeah, Pistons fans, I'm relieved. This is a good day. The hope is back. And yeah, we're at NBA draft in less than a week or a week's time. So as always, go Pistons.